Hi, everybody. Adrian Fuentes here. Did you know that the Democrats of Greater Tucson has a website, thedgt.org, and if you subscribe, it's only 20 bucks. You can support this great weekly communication where folks get together. Sometimes there's candidates, sometimes folks like me pop on to help understand what's going on in the world. The Democrats of Greater Tucson, thedgt.org. Join up today.
Okay, so let's give a little bio on Stephanie. So she's a native Arizona. She spent her early childhood years on Navajo tribal lands. She is an ordained minister in the Presbyterian Church USA and serves as a parish associate at St. Mark's Presbyterian Church here in Tucson. She's been married for 26 years. She and her husband, Derek, have 3 children in Tucson, where they have settled after Stephanie completed her Master's of Divinity at Princeton Theological Seminary. Stephanie's faith and love for her community drove her to extensive involvement, from coaching cross country to coordinating the after-school garden program, to working in the schools as a substitute teacher, even serving on the site council and PTO. The Tucson community and public schools, the more she saw, there was a lack of investment in public education and how it adversely affected all. Stephanie has worked as an advocate for public education, including serving as the regional lead for Save Our Schools in 2018 to stop expansion and the lack of regulation in the voucher expansion system. She served on TUSD's Family Life Curriculum Committee, dedicating hundreds of hours reviewing and revising the curriculum to be medically accurate and comprehensive. She was first elected to the Arizona House of Representatives in 2020. Let's give a warm welcome to Stephanie Stahl Hamilton.
Thank you all. It is good to be with friends. I am, I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. I think the last time we were together, I think I was able to give a little bit of a ledge update, and I think it was right before I was heading back into session. My bio says a lot of what drove me to run for office, and I will preface it by saying trying to raise a family on an educator's salary in the state of Arizona is near impossible. I was always, when the kids were little, working 2, sometimes 3 part-time jobs, depending on what it was, in order to help us make ends meet, and trying to be as present to my children as possible. Trying to find and keep quality, affordable healthcare for my children was also a very big challenge for our family. And I think as I started looking around and thinking, I can't imagine, with all of the privilege that I have, with it being so difficult to try to provide for my family, how are families doing it that don't have as much access or as much privilege as I do? And I think every little thing that I started to, that I was involved in, especially the ways in which I was engaged with my community, it just led me to seeing where a big part of the challenges, where all of that, I guess, was where it all began. And that was at the legislature, with a lot of the decisions being made at the legislature that really it shaped my family's life and the ways in which it did. And I thought, it is amazing how in this arena, there's not a lot I can take personally because it's not about me. But you better believe I'm cognizant, with all of the laws that we were making, how personal those laws are, because they affect the everyday lives of the people in the state of Arizona. We have great capacity to shape people's lives in this state. And it seems like we're still doing that. And always not for the best. And so I ran on a platform of accessing money investing in our public schools, our public education system, increasing access to quality, affordable healthcare for children. I had really dug in and learned a lot about how we need to make sensible gun safety laws in this state. You know, I was leaning into environmental concerns and certainly understanding that we don't have laws or protections for people in our LGBTQ plus community. And those were some of the issues that were at the forefront when I ran for office. I was elected and immediately plunked down on the Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committee, as well as the Government and Elections Committee. And now that was back in 2020. I had no idea just how important those two committees would be. And certainly fast forward 4 years, and we are still working to try to protect our elections, to keep them free, safe, and fair. And certainly really working hard to deal with issues of water and natural resources in our state with our environmental concerns. Along the way, I served 1 year in the House when it was the old LD 10. And then the following session, when at that time, Senator Kirsten Engel resigned to run for Congress, I was appointed to fill her seat. And so I spent a session serving in the state Senate. Learned a lot, fostered a lot of relationships over in that chamber. And then redistricting happened, and I realized I was districted in with Senator Gabaldon. And there was no need in me primarying her. She was doing an incredible job, and so I just needed a seat, and so I went back and ran for the House in 2022. And happy to be back in the House. I'm certainly grateful and thankful for all the experiences that I've had while in service. And I will tell you, I've learned a couple of things about the nature of this job. And the first is, you don't get anything done without building relationships. And I spent my very first year, that was my goal. I did not make any promises to anybody other than I would show up, I would do my job to the best of my ability, and I would focus on building relationships that very first year. And lo and behold, you know, I got to start over again the second year in the Senate. And those relationships have been very important. They've been bipartisan relationships and bicameral at this point. So that was the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned was that it's important to be who you are 100% of the time. I don't have to agree with everybody up there. In fact, it's better if I don't agree with everybody. But folks know who I am as I show up, because I try to show up 100% fully who I am while I'm there. And people know what they're getting, and believe it or not, it builds respect and trust. Folks know, you know, they know what they can count on from me in the way of votes and in the way of personal leadership when I'm at the legislature. And that's been a very valuable lesson, because that has led me to being able to fulfill one of the promises I did make to my constituents, and that is that I will not trade my values for votes. I will be 100% of who I am, and will show up with my values. And I am here to serve the people of Arizona, and if I do not show up with integrity and honesty, you know, for me, why am I doing the job? I'm here for the people. I'm not here for myself. And folks know who they elected. They know where my values are. And so the best I can do is to honor my constituents and hold to my values. I feel like I could go on and on and on, but that is the crux of who I am. And I really would love for this to be a dialogue and a conversation. So if there's more you want to know, I'm happy, you know, to field questions and answer questions. But I'm gonna let you, Joe, just you
Yeah,
know,
sure.
I'll let you
Yeah.
facilitate here. How's that?
We'll help you get great questions and with good answers. And
I suppose I will. I could circle back and talk. The last time I met with you all, I know there was a lot of curiosity and I was not able to say a lot, but let's step back a session, and a lot of folks really, I think, had questions about the Bible incident. I am now free and clear and able to talk about that. I know Michael really had wanted to know and was curious, but I can tell you, even with my ordination, I am a staunch supporter of the separation of church and state. And we've got a real problem in this country with the growing white Christian nationalist movement. And a lot of that is absolutely seeping into the halls of government. Folks are becoming more and more bold. They are, there's a lot less impulse control in that regard. And certainly my little peaceful protest landed me in some hot water, all depending on who you spoke with. But I think it became even more clear to my colleagues just how important it is for us to take a stand and to push for the separation of church and state. So, you know, if that's a conversation we want to have, I'm here for that as well.
well, wow, it seems like it was forever ago.
It feels like how fast time moves, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I think, Mike, we have a question in the chat.
Indeed, we do. Gail would like to know how concerned Stephanie is about the legislative referrals from the majority that will be on our ballot this year, and how best can we educate voters on them?
You know, I'm concerned about a lot of them. There are 11 referrals from, and it fell on partisan divides from the Republican Party. Certainly one of the most concerning for me is House Concurrent Resolution 2060, which we have been calling SB 1070 2.0. It is racist, anti-immigration legislation that will allow the state to take over federal jurisdiction. And there's a lot that's very problematic with it. I think it will make our people less safe, and we will return to the days of racial profiling, and that is just not good for anybody in Arizona. Just 2 weeks ago, I was at the legislature. I serve on Leg Council, and we were there debating the ballot measure language. Our task is to make that language as neutral and as neutral as possible and as accurate as possible. And without fail, there are several measures that we tried to amend the language to make it neutral and fair. And the Republicans have more people on that committee, and so the votes, we were unsuccessful in our attempts, but a couple of those measures will be tied up in the courts. I'm of two minds. I am concerned about the ballot measures, because the 11 referrals are not anything that I think work well for the people in the state of Arizona. So I have concerns. And I'm concerned that because there are so many, people are going to just tune out and not learn about the nuances of each ballot measure. This is legislation that we should be taking responsible for, your elected leaders. And these are coming to the people because none of them would have been signed into law by our governor. They would have been vetoed. And so this is the Republicans' attempt to get these measures put into law as a workaround for Governor Hobbs. So it is very concerning. And how we can best, there will be a voter guide coming out. The language is still going back and forth in the courts with a couple of them. We're not quite there yet. And then I think once we get that language, I think it behooves all of us to have little learning sessions, right? Like take your neighbors out for coffee, or the people you talk about. You know, I think what we need to do is talk about them and set up learning opportunities. I know a few years back in 2018, when I was stumping for 305, gosh, there were so many sessions at the libraries, you know, lots of different groups worked hard to get information out. And so I think DGT could absolutely do a teach-in. Our LDs should be talking about these. So yes, I'm very concerned about them. Now, the 3 citizens initiatives that we collected signatures for, I think those are things that the citizens of Arizona want. And I feel really positive that with the number of signatures we got on all 3 of those ballot citizens initiatives, that we can get those across the finish line. But the 11 referrals, I'm very worried about.
Okay. Mike, I think is there another question in the chat?
Not yet. Oh wait. Oh yes, there is from John. John says, do you support the Kamala Harris run for president, and why?
Yes, I do actually. And let me just step back in time. I mean, I think making our decisions truly should be based upon fact and reason. But I have, you know, President Biden was my U.S. Senator when I was in high school. I went to high school in Delaware, 7th through 12th grade, and he was the commencement speaker at my high school graduation. He drove all the way down to the bottom of the state, and there were 95, we were a tiny farming community, and there were 95 students in my graduating class. And, you know, so there's a little bit of a history there. And, you know, I've had to just take a minute to think about what all of this means. I think certainly yesterday my phone was blowing up. Everybody's phone was blowing up, all the alerts. But I have, over the years, really appreciated the work that Vice President Harris has performed and done. I mean, I think serving with President Biden, I think she's had a front row seat of the ins and outs. And certainly, if something were to happen with him, she would be the person taking over anyway. And, you know, she had my vote when I voted for Biden for president, because I was also voting for Vice President Harris. I know that already the younger generation, the folks who are 20 and 30 years younger than I am, are incredibly energized and excited. And I can't say that they were feeling that excited about President Biden. It's just, I'm reporting what I know, you know, anecdotally. And so I think this is going to give us a bump. Now, mind you, I was on my phone texting them saying, all right, I'm hearing the grumbling. You better mobilize your base and get your people out to help us get this done. I also think that Vice President Harris, she's got teeth when she needs them. She's tough. She's incredibly intelligent. I'm remembering when she took on Kavanaugh for that Supreme Court hearing, and just how fierce she was. She's not a shrinking violet. She knows her stuff. She's incredibly intelligent. She's had a front row seat. And I think when we think about national security, you know, President Biden had to rebuild a lot in 2020 with other countries and other nations. And I think Vice President Harris has done a lot of that work. Those relationships are there. And so for quite a few reasons, she has my support.
Okay. And Lillian Fox has a question. Lillian, you can unmute yourself. Yeah, good to see you.
I have 2 questions. One, probably everybody knows but me, but on the ballot, do we, is there anything that indicates which of the referrals are from the legislature and which ones are citizens? Because it'd be really helpful if that was done in the future.
Right. I think the referrals will have, it's the first number. I think, and I know they're getting the numbers correct. I think the citizens initiatives will be the 300 propositions, and the ballot referrals, I believe, will have a different starting number. You know, sometimes we'll see it'll be a Prop 100 something, Prop 200, Prop 300, Prop 400. I think the 400 are the city municipal propositions, and I think it's the 200s that are the referrals. Numbers are being assigned, and I can remember the Citizens Initiative for Prop 305, that I think those are your 300 propositions. So there'll be a distinction in the numbers for sure.
Okay. Can I ask a second question, or do you want me to wait?
No, sure. Go ahead, Lily.
Okay. My other question is, I loved LD10 when you were in it. And
Yes.
because LD10 regularly held town halls. And so we knew what the issues were we ought to be paying attention to. And you were also taking input from us. Well, now
Right.
I'm in LD18, and the only time I ever hear from them is when they want money from me. Now, you're in a different LD now. Are you holding town halls and keeping voters informed or not?
I show up every month for my LD meeting and give a legislative update monthly, but we're not doing town halls. LD 21 encompasses 3 different counties. And
Okay.
that has been a little bit of a challenge. And the other thing is, the folks who were doing who were helping us with the legislative town halls were volunteers, and we're setting it all up. And that, I think the redistricting threw us all in disarray, because the folks who were helping with that ended up in several different LDs as well. So but I loved those town halls. I loved preparing for them. I would love to go back and do more of those town halls. I think you're absolutely right, Lillian. And I always appreciated the questions and the engagement at those town halls. I've always said that I take this job seriously, the title of representative, and how can I know how to represent if I am not regularly engaging with my constituents?
But you are holding meetings, even though they're not town halls, so that's good.
Right. I show up monthly, and there's been 1 or 2 monthly LD meetings I've not been able to make, but I've submitted a written report when I cannot make those meetings.
Thank you very much.
And the other thing, Lily, and I will say this, it's a little more, little less official LD. I mean, legislative stuff, but every Friday I try to send out a Friday pondering. I always have a link on Facebook, but if you want to sign up for my email or give me your email to my list, you'll get a Friday pondering. And I do not make money asks on those ponderings. That is simply me dispensing information and my thoughts as I'm stepping through the legislative session. So there's also another way to just hear from me on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I would be glad to do that. Would you put your email in the chat?
Yeah, what you can do is I'll put my website, because it'll say sign up for my newsletter, and it's just my Friday pondering. So I'll put that right now in the chat.
Okay. Well,
I can tell you definitely Stephanie is a great communicator, and she shows up. You know, every time I go to an event, there's Stephanie right there.
Yep, for sure. So, Mike, any other questions in the chat?
Not as of yet. Well, actually, one just came in from George. He says, Stephanie, when will you be running for a higher office?
You know, I don't think I'm looking to borrow any trouble. We still haven't straightened out the nonsense in our state, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I'm really so very fortunate to be able to serve LD 21. I love the fact that it's both urban and rural, and I get to cover quite a bit of territory. I'm very happy serving in the Arizona legislature.
Okay. And Lee Oler has a question. Lee?
Yes, I've been wondering about this, Stephanie, looking at the people running also for what you're running for. How much of your old district overlaps into 21?
Yeah, that's a great question. My old district had 49 precincts, and I think out of those 49 precincts, I don't know, the LD10, they split it apart and put it into 4 different LDs. And I think, I haven't counted specifically, but I think I've kept probably about 15 to 20 of those precincts of my old LD, but I actually inherited more precincts from the old LD too. So again, you know, it's that's sort of the middle to, I mean, it's the lower half of old LD10 out, not quite as far east. So I'm probably, yeah, probably about 15 of my old precincts.
And you feel certain or confident that you will do well in this election, in the primary?
I mean, I think I'll do well. I've been working my tail off. You know, I'm on those doors. We've been phone banking. I've taken out the ads. I take as many interviews as I can. I, you know, I can only, it's all about name recognition. I've spent a lot of time down in Bisbee. I've had relationships with the people down there since 2018 when I was working on Prop 305. And, you know, we certainly are assessing the data. We took a look at how I performed last election cycle and know where we needed to double down on our efforts. I've had an incredible amount of community support this go around. I think having a contested primary will do that. People will show up if they want you to go back, and there's been an outpouring of generosity in time and financial resources from the community. I've got a lot of support, so I still think it's anybody's guess, but I know that we have done as much as we can do, and certainly being the prime author sponsor of the repeal has gotten me quite a bit of attention and a lot of support as well. So I think the stars are aligned, but again, it's anybody's guess how this race is going to turn out.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, Mike, we have some questions in the chat.
No, not as of yet. George is the last one. Susie has made a pitch there for people to join the DGT as a paid member and you know, help us do what we do. But I do have a personal question. Of course, this video that we're recording now is going to end up on the DGT's homepage, and we have a new category of contested primaries, and LD21 is one of those. So you did mention that it is a contested three-way primary this time. It's my understanding that that Representative Hernandez invited Ms. Brianna Ortega to contest the seat. Is that understanding correct? That Alma was kind of responsible for Brianna jumping in? And second, what is the big distinction between the three candidates that primary voters in your district should know and understand in order to make an intelligent choice between the three of you for two of you to return to go to office?
You know, I can't answer for the other two people in this race. I don't know what the impetus was. I don't know how we got here. So I'm hesitant to say anything about that because I don't know. What I do know is that there are three of us running and I'm doing the best I can. Now, please pitch me the second question. I am so sorry.
Oh, well, basically, if there's a distinction between the three of you that voters should be aware of that could help them make a choice between the three candidates that exist for the two seats that are going to be filled.
Sure. Well, I'll start out with experience. I think it is something that sets me apart. First and foremost, my life experience. I shared a little bit of that with my opening remarks, in that I am a wife and a mother, and have raised my children. My daughter, my youngest, is a senior in high school, but I have faced the challenges of raising children and encountering all those things that are important for getting our kids launched into adulthood. I know my children have never had the benefit of a fully funded education. You know, I know the challenges of being a low wage earner and trying to provide for a growing family. I, know what it's like to look at my child and say, I don't know that we can afford the emergency room bill. Let's see if we can get you treatment another way. Or having to decide, do I pay the utility bill or do I pay the grocery bill? I know those challenges, and I have felt the weight of those burdens personally. And it's harder when you're the adult in the room responsible for these little people. And so, that life experience, you cannot take that away. That is my experience. I think having spent my childhood years on Navajo tribal lands, I understand very intimately the power dynamic of what this state has done to disenfranchise our First Peoples. The fact that the pandemic almost decimated the Navajo Nation because there still is not running water. Over 50 years ago when I lived out there, there was not running water. Not a one of us would stand for that for 1 minute. We would not put up with living in a place where we did not have access to running water or electricity. And yet it's been half a century, and that is still what is happening on Navajo tribal lands. And I saw it firsthand as a child. So that life experience, you cannot take that away from me. I know what it is to live in both rural and urban Arizona. I was a camp director for the Presbyterian Church for 7 summers. And we experienced the wildfire burning through my camp and having to deal with the aftermath of that and all of the environmental concerns. And so one of the things that we had to do was find other places to hold camp. I have lived and recreated all over this state. So when we talk about our natural resources and the environment and forest health and fire safety, that some of the biggest things that affect our state, that is experienced within my wheelhouse because I have experienced that personally. And then I have, out of the 3 of us vying for these seats, I have served the longest. I have served for 4 years, and I have experience both in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. So I think those are some of the things that set me apart and where I can differentiate myself in running for this seat and wanting to have more time to continue to work on the things that I have worked on.
Joe, can I just have a quick follow-up on that, please?
Sure.
The county attorney's race is turning here in Pima County is turning out to be a quite contentious one. And there's I think a stark contrast between our incumbent Democratic candidate, Laura Conover, and the challenger, Mike Jetty. And one of the distinguishing features that I've noticed is I believe you are, in fact, endorsing Laura Conover for re-election. Is that correct?
Yes, and we've been carrying her lit this whole time. We've collaborated a lot with our campuses.
And I can't say that I know Brianna Ortega's position, but I know Alma Hernandez's position, and she's in fact endorsing Mike Jetty. And so I'm interested and concerned to know if you have any opinion on that difference between the 2 of you, at least, and possibly distinguishing between the 3 candidates. I'm not, like I said, I don't know about Brianna's.
Well, and let me just back up and let you know that Alma Hernandez is not my seatmate. She serves Legislative District 20.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Consuelo
right.
Hernandez.
Consuelo Hernandez. Yeah, I got confused.
Is my seatmate.
Sorry about that.
I think she's done a lot of good work, and I think there's some things that she can be incredibly pleased with, the changes that she's made. I think, for me, a lot of my adult life has been to work and serve youth and children. And one of the things that Laura has done that I think is something she absolutely should be proud of, and that is, in Pima County, we do not try children as adults in the court system. And I think that is critical to rehabilitation, for giving young people an opportunity to make changes and to actually have a future. Change does not happen overnight, and change makes people cranky. And I think what Laura has been up against in making changes, like not trying children as adults, has made a lot of people cranky. And we are not a patient people. In the age of technology, we are used to immediacy, and change takes time. And waiting and having to exercise patience makes people cranky. And I don't I know that sounds like I'm reducing things, but I think it's a part of what's gone into this race. And when folks are cranky and anxious, they're a lot more reactionary. And so I think if we want change, and Attorney Conover, made some promises when she ran the first time. She was going to do it differently, and she has been. And I think making those changes, we have to say, are we willing to stand by her as she is making changes, the changes we said we wanted, or the moment it gets tough, are we going to throw in the towel and go and look for somebody different, which is going to bring within it another transition and more change. So, for me, I would absolutely ask people, let's give Attorney Conover, 4 more years. She was masterful in helping with the abortion issue. She was the one that filed the motion to keep a stay so that nobody had to live under an 1864 ban until we could get that law repealed off of the books. That was Attorney Conover's work, and I think she should be applauded for that work and recognized for the fact that she was willing to roll up her sleeves and get in the fight. But I would say, change takes time, and people don't like to change, but she is enacting the change we asked her to when we elected her 4 years ago.
All right, thanks, Stephanie.
Okay, well, the discussion has a lot of hands up, which is awesome. I'm going to go to folks first time. So Susie, you first. Question.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. It's so wonderful to have you here as always. What I was wondering, as a wife, as a mother, how does your family help you, especially in a day and age when in national politics, we've got J.D. Vance, who wrote Hillbilly Elegy and is down on women to such an extreme extent. How do you feel, how does your family help you get to where you want to be?
My family, this has always been my gig, right? And we have incredible conversations. And I think the one thing that my family does is they keep me grounded. This is my work. It's the work I've chosen to do. They'll show up here and there. I pick and choose, when I want my family to be around. But more than anything, they help me because they are pursuing their own interests. We have the freedom for them to make choices. And yesterday, when all the news was breaking, my son and my husband and I were sitting in our family room having an incredible conversation. And my son, my middle boy, is just in such a different space. He's 19. He's, a barely brand new baby voter. And it was just fascinating to hear his take. And so I think the biggest role that they play, they are my biggest cheerleaders. They're all critical thinkers. They weigh in on stuff, and just they keep me grounded. This is my work. It's my job. It's not theirs. But again, if I'm going to represent, I need to know who I'm representing, and my family keeps me grounded in incredibly wonderful ways. They keep me human.
Absolutely. That's really wonderful. Andrea, you have a question. We got a lot of other folks too, so let's keep it to one question, okay?
Okay. I won't go on and on.
I didn't say that.
No, you didn't say that. You're right. It's good to see you, Stephanie. Tell me what you think of this hypothetical poster. Harris, Kelly, 2024.
Good question.
Oh, my
Good
goodness.
question.
I don't know if it matters what I think. I would like for, I think the world of Senator Kelly, but good night. We finally got through, getting him elected for 6 years. And I just really would love for him to stay in place. I do think, let's think a little critically too, though, about this race. Vice President Harris is from California, and we know that there are spaces, you know, in the middle of the country, in the southeastern part of the country, you know, there are different parts in the country where I think if we're strategic about who we pull in for the second person on the ticket, we might actually pull in more votes to get our folks across the finish line. I think folks love Kelly. Absolutely. We adore him. I think he'd be up for the challenge. But I also think we need to geographically think smart about these United States and where can we pull that will bring a significant number of voters that we haven't been able to pull in the last couple of election cycles.
Okay, wow, what a great question, huh? Only on the Democrats of Greater Tucson. Bill, you have a question. You're up, buddy.
Yeah, hi, Stephanie. Thanks for being here. I'm kind of assuming that you're a delegate to the DNC. Even if you're not, are you hearing about our delegates and what they're planning on doing here in the state of Arizona? Have you heard anything reliable yet about that? Can we get something?
Yeah, I think our plans just shifted in 24 hours, right? Like, I don't think anything is set in stone. I think people are still gathering information. I will not presume to speak for any of our delegates other than to say I think they're trying to get as much information as possible. You know what? There are a lot of moving targets right now.
Okay, another good question. So Bridget, I think you are up.
Thank you, Stephanie. And not everybody here knows, but Stephanie Stahl Hamilton is my favorite legislator, even though I live in another district. I was so impressed with you when you first ran, and you bring so much to the state of Arizona, so thank you. It's not a big secret, but I am a strong supporter of Mike Jetty, and I understand that you have mentioned that change takes time, but Laura Conover has had a record over the last 3.5 years. Right. And one of the key critical aspects is the diversion program. Right. And that has not gone particularly well. In the years 2018 to 2019, there were 1,300 people who went through a diversion program. There were 321 cases of juveniles who went through a similar program with a success rate of 94%. And in 3.5 years, that program has been, I would say, disseminated, and she failed to even meet with the director of the diversion program for the 3 years that director was there. So I just want to point out that there are some serious problems with her performance in the last 3.5 years. So I thought you should know that.
Thank you. Thank you, Bridget. I appreciate you.
Yeah. And now, Lee Oler, you have another question.
Yes, I do. It's a suggestion talking when Stephanie was talking about the makeup of LD21 and the competitors in her race. If I lived in LD21, I would single shot Stephanie Stahl Hamilton on the ballot. And I recommend that for anybody that is the least bit concerned about Consuela and her friend, because I don't want to see Stephanie out of the legislature. Did I make that clear?
It's very clear. Thank you, Lee.
I want to see some heads nodding there.
Yeah, well, no, yes.
You got it. Okay,
yes.
You understand where I'm going with that statement. Okay. Okay. I think single shotting is a wonderful tool, and we should use it in this situation. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say you were fabulous when you were in LD10, and so I'm going to donate money to you. That's all I can do. But I had a question. In LD21, are all the elected people currently Democrats, or do you have some Republicans too?
No, we're Democrats. Yeah. So Senator Gambaldon Rosana Gabalon is the sitting senator, and then it's myself and Consuelo. So I know that there's been a lot of organizing by the Republicans down in Santa Cruz County. But right now, I think when we look at voter registration, right now we're still somewhat of a safe blue district. Another reason I would love to continue to serve in this capacity is that I'm working very closely with the chair of Santa Cruz County Dems to do some organizing and seeing what we can do to build up the PC base and turnout in Santa Cruz County. So it truly helps when you've got name recognition and some continuity. We have been chipping away at this. And I probably should mention that, so I have parts of Santa Cruz County, Cochise County, and Pima. So one of the things that I've been pulled into that you folks might find really interesting is an organization called Unidos is doing some revitalization work in Nogales. And some of it is economic development, working on affordable housing, and key to some of this, or a lot of it, is the fact that we are still working on getting better or getting broadband out to rural Arizona, and that is a little piece of this revitalization project that I'm getting to work on is working on bringing broadband to Nogales, helping the mayor of that city. So I'm spending a little more time. I'm working with folks in Rio Rico and I've been pulled into conversations and work groups for bringing a Boys and Girls Club also to Rio Rico. So, we've got a lot of support and access to resources here in Tucson, but Santa Cruz County really needs a lot of help. And it makes me happy to be down there. And I think with a lot of this work also brings, name recognition and trust so that we can continue to organize in Santa Cruz County.
Okay, we got to watch our time now, but Don Womack, you have a question?
I'm going to have to talk about Laura Conover, okay? Now, I know that lady extremely well, and obviously it's not true about the diversion program. She's worked hard with that. She's done a good job. But let's go back to our buddy Mike Jetty, okay? Now, he has received probably somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000 from Republicans. The Clegg guy, whatever his damn first name is, the car dealer, he gave him the max of $6,650. About 8 real estate developers have given him the max. One of them is Hector Herberto, could be the wealthiest guy in Tucson. He gave him the max, he gave him $5,000, and he bundled $25,000 or $30,000 from his real estate corporation, XSL. They're a big developer. They own a lot of apartments. I met him one time, and he said, "Boy, Cosmini is the greatest guy I know. I just love him." Okay. And that's Roberto. And just to wrap this up, you can go to the Jetty's financial report, and he's gotten $6,650 from 8 different real estate developers. Laura is strong on implementing environment regulations in the city, so there's got to be a reason, why he's getting like $50,000 from real estate developers. I think he's despicable. I'm sorry. That's the end of my conversation.
Okay. Well, thanks both of you for that input. The chat room is lighting up, Mike. So I got to believe there's some things in there we want to go to.
I just wanted to give you one last opportunity that, most of us are aware of the work that you did around abortion access here in Arizona in our state legislature and leading that effort in the Democratic caucus. But I wanted to give you an additional chance to remind anybody who may not be aware of that, who are primary voters in LD20, what your role was and what leadership you provided in that effort.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Michael. It really was an honor to be the prime sponsor of House Bill 2677, which was a clean repeal of the 1864 abortion ban, near total abortion ban. And so, when the Supreme Court of Arizona released its verdict, you know, that they believed the legislative intent back in 2022 was for the people of Arizona to go back to the 1864 law. You know, that happened on April 9th, and April 10th, House Bill 2677, we tried to get it up on the board for the first time. It took us 22 days to get it across the finish line. But one of the things in all of that most people didn't see, because it's where I've said most legislation happens as far as getting bills across the finish line, are in quiet conversations in the hallways behind closed doors. And my first context clue that we would be able to get this done was the Republicans, who immediately said 1864 was too extreme. And that was a signal to their people and their base that something was going to be done. And I knew where we could find the votes there. And that was coming out of the Senate chambers. And so I wasn't surprised by the votes in the Senate. It was a little bit trickier trying to find those votes in the House. And I had my suspicions. And there was an interaction on the House floor when everything was in the very, you know, very, very new stages, where the first time we were trying to get the bill on the board. There was just one sentence given to me by a person who said, "We need time to get our votes in order." And I thought, yeah, the votes are there. So it just really was a matter of keeping the caucus together, reminded the people, you know, the reporters were, "Well, what do you say the first day it failed?" And I just said, "This is day one." And we're gonna, next Wednesday will be day two. And we're just gonna keep marking the days until we get there. And you know, I just needed to have quiet confidence that it would happen. It was just a matter of time. And in the meantime, truly, it was keeping our caucus together, helping people to stay in their own lane. And the biggest perspective was there were three prongs to this ordeal. And the first was being taken care of in the courts. We knew that there was a stay. So Attorney General Mays, you know, County Attorney Laura Conover were working together to give us that time that we needed to get the bill repealed. And then the third is the Citizens Initiative, which had been underway for, you know, the better part of a year. And that was the citizens part. And so I knew it was going to take all three lanes, you know, for us to get where we needed to be. And our job, and I was crystal clear about it with the caucus, was we needed a clean repeal. We needed to show up and just vote yes. We didn't need to fuss. We didn't need to fight. We needed to just show up and vote yes. And you know, I'm pleased that it only took 22 days. I was prepared for it to take much longer, but we got it done.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, for that. And we are now going on 102. So I'm going to say a very appreciative thank you to Stephanie for all of us. What a wonderful legislator, mom, and wife, and pastor. You know, we really admire the work you do, Stephanie, and we're glad you're here.
Happy to serve. Thank you.
Now, what I'm going to do is basically close the meeting right now, but hold on. A couple of people might get excited about that. I'm going to stay beyond everybody and anybody else who wants to stay. If some of, you know, if Bridget and Don want to have a little bit more of their counterpoint, I'll be glad to stay here. And if there's anybody else that wants to listen, you can stay here too. Stephanie, you can get out there and pound the pavement. So
I do need to go. I've got several other appointments, but it has been a treat to be with you and to be among friends. I did drop my website in the chat. So if you want to know more about me, you can look me up there. Like I said, if you want my Friday ponderings and you don't want to click the link on Facebook, you want it in your inbox, sign up for my newsletter. And then if you would want to help me out and would care to make a donation, there's also a donate link on my website as well. But I am accessible. There is a contact button there, and that it sends you to an email that comes right to me, and I do my best to respond to those emails within 24 hours. So thank you for your time. Thank you for the work that you all do. And I'm going to go get some votes.
Well, and you've given us some great ideas to follow up on. So thanks so much for being here again.
Hey everybody, it's Senator Mark Kelly. As all of you know, Arizona Democrats have had a lot of important wins over the last few years. We won 2 U.S. Senate races, and we delivered Arizona's electoral votes to President Biden and Vice President Harris. We elected Governor Katie Hobbs, Secretary of State Adrian Fontes, and Attorney General Chris Mays. Now, those elections were close, and our victories mattered. Arizona Democrats from the federal to the local level have delivered real results for our state on critical issues like combating climate change, lowering prescription drug costs, protecting the right to vote, and preventing more restrictions on abortion access. The Democrats of Greater Tucson offers the opportunity to hear from elected officials and candidates about that important work and the issues that matter to them. That information will be invaluable as Arizonans head to the polls. So this election cycle, whether you're signing up to knock doors, make phone calls, or joining the Democrats of Greater Tucson to hear from and speak to Democrats in our area, please know that your voice matters and we need you on this team. Thank you.